Now, one of the other things that Paul talks about is how the church should work. So he's been correcting some of their dysfunction, but then he gets real practical and he talks about basically what happens when they meet together. He says in chapter 11, "But in the following instructions, I cannot praise you, for it sounds as if more harm than good is done when you meet together. First, I hear that there are divisions among you when you meet as a church, and to some extent, I believe it." And you remember reading about some of the divisions and some of the problems that they had. But look what he says in chapter 12. "Now, dear brothers and sisters, regarding your question about the special abilities the Spirit gives us, I don't want you to misunderstand this." He's about to explain to them the spiritual gifts, the idea of spiritual gifts, and how God has given gifts to everyone. He says in verse 4, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. There are different kinds of service, but we serve the same Lord. And God works in different ways, but it is the same God who does the work in all of us. A spiritual gift, he says in verse 7, is given to each of us so we can help each other. See, here's the thing. In the church back then, part of their dysfunction is they thought the spiritual gifts were sort of like badges of honor. So one person had a certain gift and had a certain role in the church, and he felt all self-important, and another person had a different role. And go back and read chapter 12, and you'll see that what he's saying is this: guys, that's not what the spiritual gifts are about. The spiritual gifts are given so we can help each other. We're supposed to use this to build each other up, to build up the church. Truth number 8, community builds us. And so then he says in chapter 13, if I could speak all the languages of earth and of angels, like if I was gifted, that gifted, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy, which a lot of the people really wanted that gift, and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains, see, he's listing out some of the spiritual gifts, knowledge and prophecy and faith. He says, but if I had all of this but didn't love others, I would be nothing. He goes on in verse 3, he says, if I gave everything I had to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it. But if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. See, Paul's making this point. It's supposed to be about love. This is the ultimate dysfunction in the church, is they lost sight of loving God and loving one another. And it's in that context that he says this in verse 13, one of the most famous verses in this, certainly in the book here. 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. A functional church remembers this. Now, why don't you hit pause and talk about it?